Okay. Caleb, you got this?
I do.
All right, roll with it, baby. You got it.
Can you say and spell your first and last name?
Oh my goodness. I always ask that question. This is great. Dawn, D-A-W-N, Jones, J-O-N-E-S. I am the 4 p.m. anchor here at ABC 12.
How long have you been here now?
I've been here, it'll be 23 years in December, so I've been here just over 22 years.
All right, go ahead, Caleb. You're good.
So you were a reporter throughout the entirety of the Flint water crisis. Can you kind of take me through what life was during that time period?
Yeah, not only was I a reporter during the Flint water crisis, I live in the city of Flint. I was born and raised in Flint, raised my children in Flint, and I still live in the house we built in Flint, my husband and I. So not only was I reporting on it, I was living through it as a resident of the city of Flint, as a person who attends church in the city of Flint, as a person who works in the city of Flint. So my home was not impacted directly by the water pipes. We built our house in 2003 or 4, so we didn't have the galvanized pipes in our home. But I attended church in the city of Flint during that time, and I worked here at ABC 12, which is in Flint. And when I look back on that period, it's almost like, did that happen? And I think back to all of the bottled water, all of the fear that people had drinking the water, bathing in the water, and you never imagined that something like that could happen in the community where you live. So when you look back on it, it's almost like you can't believe that happened. But it was a very interesting time. And I thought most about the people. We're blessed, my husband and I, so we could afford to purchase the bottled water. I remember reporting on stories where people were lined up, and we're talking for blocks and blocks to get free bottled water. And when you go back and you look at the optic of that, it almost looked like something that you would see in a third world country, but not here in the U.S. and especially not here in the city of Flint where I live in the state of Michigan. So it was a very interesting time to live and work and report in the city during that time.
Can you kind of take me through your first reaction when this started to come out? I mean, your neighbors, the people you went to church with, everything, those people are still affected by it, and you like your family was obviously more fortunate enough where you weren't, but I mean, you had to sit there and watch people that you loved be affected by something like that. Can you just kind of take me through that?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say my family wasn't impacted. We were mentally impacted and emotionally impacted. You know, our pipes were not, lead wasn't leaching through our pipes, but we live in the city of Flint, so we were emotionally and mentally impacted by the event itself. The fact that a city of 90,000 people were being poisoned by the drinking water. And as I, reflect on my neighbors and people in my community and in my circle and at my church, it was a heartbreaking time because there was a lot of fear. We heard about Legionnaire's disease. We saw images of children and adults suffering from skin rashes, and we saw people marching in the streets with water they said that came out of their tap that was brown. So yeah, we were impacted by those images, by what we were seeing. And my first thought was pretty much like I told you initially. It was disbelief. Like, is this, really happening? And we did our part. We did our part in helping to get people bottled water if they needed it. We shared resources. We passed out water, my family and I, with our church. And we just, I think it brought the community together too in a way that it had not been in a while, because everyone in the city was impacted by this one event. And when I say everyone, that's businesses, residents, people who visit the city, students on the college campuses who may not live in Flint, but they attended college here at one of our 4 colleges or universities in the city. So we all were impacted.
Can you kind of take me through the differences between then and now? I mean, what has stuck around, what's kind of gone away, but what is the lasting effects from then till now?
I think the lasting effects is the lack of trust that the people have in government. People were showing up at government facilities. They were marching with jugs of water, discolored water, and they were being told that based on the metrics, based on the data, based on the science, the water was fine. Well, you and I both know that water shouldn't be brown. So the first step is just to acknowledge the water shouldn't be brown. You say that it's fine, but it really shouldn't be brown. So there was no acknowledgement that, early on, that there was anything wrong with the water, even though people were showing up at government agencies, marching in the street, using their voices loudly and showing brown water that they said came out of their tap. And we know any reasonable thinking individual knows that water shouldn't be brown. So I think the lasting effects of the water crisis is the lack of trust that people have in government. And I don't know how or when that's going to change. And, even today, I know people who don't trust what comes out of their tap. Even though pipes have been replaced, even though EPA standards have been raised as far as what is acceptable levels of lead and other things that can be in the water, it's all of these things have happened as a result, but people still don't trust it. And we know there's no acceptable level of lead, but the EPA puts out metrics and measurements of what constitutes safe water. And those measures were increased after the Flint water crisis. And we are hitting the benchmarks according to government officials. We're hitting those benchmarks with our water. It's being tested, and people still don't believe. And that's because they were basically lied to at the onset. So that's going to be the lasting implication of the Flint water crisis. How do people trust government again? How do people trust what the people that they've elected to tell them the truth?
You mentioned that during the water crisis, the community really came together and kind of turned to each other when they couldn't turn to the government for help. Do you believe that type of community is still intact today? Do you think that still kind of carried forward to where these people are still really tight-knit?
Well, we are not, let's see, the water crisis gave us a single cause to rally around as a collective group, as a community. And there isn't a pressing single cause right now, present today, that will have us all rallying around. You're talking about 86,000 people, businesses, the businesses and schools and hospitals and residents. I mean, everybody in the city was impacted by that. And there's no one single event right now that's impacting every single person in the city of Flint. So I wouldn't say that we are not still working together as a community, because we are, but there isn't any one big event that's, drawing us together.
Okay, couple more. When it comes to justice, settlements, criminals, it hasn't happened. What's the reaction you feel and that you've seen in your community for the lack of justice during this whole thing?
Oh, people are mad. People are mad. You have people who, I mean, their lives were, I guess, forever changed, mothers of young children children were exposed to high levels of lead because of the drinking water. You have people who lost loved ones due to Legionnaire's disease because of their drinking water. And to know that no one is being held criminally responsible for what appears to be an intentional act. We don't know if it was intentional, but it appears that it was intentional. That once someone knew that there was a problem with the water and that there was a possibility that lead and other toxins could leach from the water into the drinking water supply, I'm not, as a journalist or as a resident, going to say that a group of people got together and decided that they were going to cover it up. But I will say that no one shared the information. No one alerted the community. So it appears that it was intentionally done. And to know that no one is being held criminally responsible for that, people are just mad. They're just mad. They feel devalued. Almost like their life, their community doesn't matter. Because how can you do this to an entire community and no one is being held responsible? So people are angry. They call the television station. They're still angry. You see them in the street and they're still angry. People are just angry, and it's lasting anger.
And this isn't the first hit Flint's taken over the years. Do you ever see a path where the city recovers fully from this, or moves to that next level and is able to put this in the background, or is it always going to be a part of our lives?
We've adopted as a city the phrase from crisis to recovery. So because of the lack of trust, I don't think that we'll ever be able to completely put this behind us. And because we don't know what the long-term implications will be for those who were exposed to high levels of lead, we don't know. We don't know that. We may not know that for decades or generations, what the long-term impact will be. I don't know if we'll ever fully be able to put it behind us. And when you look around the country, there are other cities like Flint. We don't know where the next city will be or what the next city will be, but there are other cities with aging infrastructure who may find themselves in this similar situation. And every time it happened in Benton Harbor, we are reminded of what happened to us. So if it happens again, you know, in a city 1,000 miles away from here, we hear about it, we're going to be triggered as a community because we know what that's like. We know what it's like to rely on bottled water. We know what it's like not to be able to trust that we can safely shower or bathe or brush our teeth or cook our food, just everyday daily things that you need to do in life. Not knowing if you can do those things safely. We know what that feels like. We've experienced that. And even though you're told it is safe to do those things, because of the initial deception in the beginning, it's hard to believe that, yeah, it's safe. So to answer the question, I don't know if we'll ever leave it behind us, but will we move forward? Yes, we've already, you know, it's been 10 years this April. That's a decade. Flint has done some amazing things in the, you know, last decade. And Flint continues to move forward. You know, we wear strength and resilience like a badge of honor around here. You know, because of so many things that this community has gone through. And, you know, we continue to rise. So, yeah, we'll rise beyond the water crisis like we've, you know, risen beyond every other challenge that this community has faced. You know, Flint is strong. The people of Flint are strong. The people of Flint are resilient. Those who remain in this city, you know, Flint lost a lot of people after the water crisis, but those who remain in the community, they're committed to the community. They are committed to the future growth and prosperity of this community. And Flint has, even with the challenges, Flint has a long history of prosperity and a long history of setting the bar. There was a time when we had a world-class education system here. There was a time when this community was the richest community per capita in the U.S. So Flint has a long history of success. And, you know, when you have it in you, you're always striving to get to that point again. So, yeah, we've already started to move beyond the water crisis, but it was such a tragic event, you know, and when you think about tragedies, you know that you never fully, it just becomes a scab that kind of scabs over, you know, but it never truly heals at the core. And sometimes the scab is bumped and you feel a little sensation. So, you know, we'll continue to be triggered at times when we see the same thing happening to other people. But I don't think we're going to allow anyone to do that to us again.
Okay. All right. Anything else you guys got?
That was great.
Can I hit you with one more before we go?
Oh, yeah, hit me.
The role of poverty in this whole thing. Does this happen if Flint isn't Flint? You know, if it already isn't, you know, a poor town with lots of problems, you know, how do you see that?
You know, as I think about the Flint water crisis, you know, I say it's the 3 Ps. And And so it was policy, politics, and perception. So the policy is the emergency manager law. When you talk about Flint being Flint, the emergency manager law that was put in place in the in the state of Michigan, where the state could appoint someone to come into your community and fix your financial problems, if you will. So it was someone that the community, they didn't have a say in who this person was, at the state level. When this happened to Flint, the city of Flint was under an emergency manager. The emergency manager made the decision to switch the water source because it was a cost savings measure. Their role in the city of Flint was strictly to cut costs, to balance the budget, balance the books, correct the financial issues. So you have this emergency manager. They're looking at the Flint River, and they're looking at that being a source of water, and they're looking at how much is being paid to, another municipality to get the water. And they decide that it's best to go with the Flint River without doing what many believe is due diligence to make sure that the Flint River that source can sustain this community, that it's a safe source. So we all know what happened next, right? Now we have the Flint water crisis. So it was policy that I believe that started it. And the emergency manager, when you look at the cities that the emergency manager, where they appointed emergency managers, they were in cities that had a high concentration of poverty, urban communities, a high concentration of African Americans, a high concentration of poverty, and they placed these emergency managers in those municipalities. There was even one in the Detroit Public School District, so they put them in the school districts. But the one thread is they were mainly African American and had a high concentration of poverty. I don't think that what happened in the city of Flint would have happened in a community that didn't have a high concentration of poverty and that was not predominantly African American. And so, we have to look at the policy, and we have to look at how, the policy was executed and where it was executed. And, politics speak for themselves. But when we get to the perception part, you have a community has a high concentration of poverty, predominantly African American in an urban community. The perception is those folks don't participate in the process. That's the perception. They aren't contributing to campaigns. They aren't, and so when you think about, because as a human, I just can't think, as a human, I can't imagine not being, if I knew that someone was in danger, something as basic as drinking water, and I knew that people consuming drinking water would put them potentially in danger. As a human, I just couldn't stand by and let that happen. So you have to ask yourself, how did people do that? How did they do that? So there must not have been any value placed on the people who were being impacted. It's a community of high concentration of poverty and African Americans. So one would think that there was no value placed on the lives of those people So it was easy for politicians to say, well, and I'm not saying they said this, I wasn't in the room, so I don't know, but you know, if we're just talking about how it appeared, that, well, you know, we see it, but maybe let us try to fix it before, you know, we cause pandemonium. Can you imagine someone coming to your community and saying, don't drink the drinking water, it's going to poison you? So maybe someone just said, well, that would cause pandemonium. There is no easy way to say that. Maybe we try to fix it, or maybe we just let it go on and see what happens. I don't know which route they took. I wasn't privy to those discussions or conversations. But we had the water crisis, so everybody can decide for themselves how we may have gotten here, you know, to that point 10 years ago.
You guys got anything else? All right, this time. Oh, well, that's perfect timing then.
I hope I gave you something.
Yeah, you gave us a lot.